Hello everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel, where I show you how to use heat embossing with a resist technique. You can see that I'm already putting ink down, and I'm very sorry that I didn't get the first part of this video. It just did not record, but it was just heat setting with white heat embossing powder, big stamp, and it's a background stamp, and for me it's like a love letter from God. It says, it's like the running text with, "You matter, you just do, you mean the world to me, you make me smile when skies are gray, you make a difference, you are the best, you are needed, you are smart and kind and special, you rock, you sparkle, you shine, you light up the room when you smile," and so on and so forth. And when I saw this background stamp, it was just like hearing God speaking into my life and telling me all those things, that I'm special, I'm needed, He has a plan for me. And that's why I wanted it in my Bible. And so I heat set it. You can see that I used the masking paper on the side, just right there where the edge of the text begins. I used it with clear sticky ink. It's embossing ink. And then I poured over some white embossing powder and heat set it. And now you can see me working with an ink blending foam over the text. And what it does is that the page without the embossing powder on it takes up the ink, and everywhere where the embossing powder is, it resists. So the white text just pops out of the page. And if you do this, it's very important that you use those round ink blending foams and tap off very much, at least at the beginning, and then you have to use a very, very light hand so you don't get harsh edges that you don't want. You want a soft blend. And you can see me here go over with blue, and then after I'm done with the blue, I'm going back in with the green over top so that it blends nicer. And you can do this as often as you want. And another thing to keep in mind with those ink blending foams is the more you use them, the more they get used to ink blending, and the smoother your blending will be. So here I have one that I did not use that much, and it's much harder to get a nice blend with it than with other ones I used much more before. And now, while you can watch me blend the rest of the page, I wanted to talk to you about God's love. And that's one of the most basic topics in the Bible, that He loves us so much, He gave His own Son for us to die on a cross. And it's such an important thing to remember. So I wanted to make a page in my Bible about it, so I never forget it, or so I can always go back to this page and remember it, that He smiles upon me. When I call Him Daddy, He looks at me and He gives me attention, and He says, "You're good as you are." And it's not only me He says that to, but you also. He says to you that you are wanted, that you are exactly the way He wanted you, and that He loves you no matter what. You can do whatever, and He will still love you with all His heart. And I'm not talking about any old love. I'm talking about the love of God, and He describes it in 1 Corinthians chapter 13, perfect. "If I speak with human eloquence and angelic ecstasy, but don't love, I'm nothing but the creaking of a rusting gate. If I speak God's word with power, revealing all His mysteries and making everything plain as day, and I have faith that says to the mountain, jump, and it jumps, but I don't love, I'm nothing. If I give everything I own to the poor, and even go to the stake to be burned as a martyr, but I don't love, I've gotten nowhere. So no matter what I say, what I believe, and what I do, I'm bankrupt without love. Love never gives up. Love cares more for others than for self. Love doesn't want what it doesn't have. Love doesn't strout, doesn't have a swelled head, doesn't force itself on others, isn't always me first, doesn't fly off the handle, doesn't keep score of the sins of others, doesn't revel when others grovel, takes pleasure in the flowering of truth, puts up with anything, trusts God always, always looks for the best, never looks back, but keeps going to the end. And that's the kind of love He has for us. Now you saw me rub the white embossing after I was done with all the ink blending, and that's just to get it to pop a little bit more off the page, because the ink sets on top of it a little bit. But don't use a wet baby wipe or anything, just hardly damp baby wipe or towel. And then I removed the masking paper to see what's underneath, and that's always one of the best parts. What I do now is I want to make a tab for the page, because I did not have anything rainbow colored. I just tried doing it myself, and I'm doing it with my 6 clean color real brush markers, and with those you have to go from light to dark, so you saw me go back and forth. And now I'm going through my stash to search for the words I want, and I want the words "you are loved", so I'm looking for those in a size that will fit this tab that I made. And I'm not sure why, but I just cut off the top first so I could lay out the words that I chose. And I noticed that it was too narrow, so I just widened it with the red on both ends, and so it would get bigger and broad enough for all the words that I chose. And then I had to heat set it because I want to heat emboss on it. And if you heat emboss over top of damp underground, so then you don't get heat embossing where you want it, but the embossing powder sticks everywhere. You can see it now here where I put those 2 strips of red later, that it sticks there, and that's just not what you want, because you want to read the words, not to have the white embossing powder everywhere. So I heat set it again and put the words down, and that I would not recommend to do every word at once. I just thought I could save some time, and I was very, very lucky because the 2 stamp sites I used are both from the same stamp company, and I guess that was part of it, why it worked. But they are not always the same height, and if you get 2 heights that are not compatible with each other, you might get a very smeared look. So now I stamped it with the embossing ink and put on some white heat embossing powder, and then because I only have "you are love", I had to use the D from another word, and just try to only get the D inked up, but I had a little bit of the next letter there, so I used the brush to wipe it away. You can do that as long as you don't yet have heat set it. And then I heat set it, and it's very important to get your heat gun nice and hot so you don't warp the paper unnecessary. And you cannot do this with a blow dryer or anything. You need a heat gun because a blow dryer just won't get hot enough. And now I'm cutting it into a tab shape to put it into my Bible, and you can see that you can just make tabs with nearly everything you have. If you want to use a special paper or a special pattern, you can just make it yourself. You don't need to buy tabs, but of course you can. And I use them quite often myself. But this time I did not have any that would fit into the thing that I was already doing. So I made myself one. And I wanted it to be on the other side as well. But I did not want to have to do the rainbow again. So I just wrote the "You Are Loved" with the 6 clean color wheel brush markers. And I just used a color for every letter. And then the placement of the tab is quite important to me because I want to see it and I don't want to have a tab right in front or right in the back of it. So I just try to space them out evenly across my Bible. And because now I had already all the colors of the rainbow, I just used black for the last word, loved. And if you do that, you don't do as I did. I used liquid glue, and if you use liquid glue, you smear your paint, or you just use a black pen that's waterproof, and then that won't happen. There you saw it. I smeared it, and now I'm just putting it into my Bible. I'm sorry, I'm off camera. But I'm basically just putting it in so the smearing won't be apparent on the other side. Yes, and I'm looking it. And now you can just watch some more photographs of this picture, some close-up of this page, and I hope to see you next time. Bye.